Greetings, friends. Vile, disgusting creatures in the world, Russians continue to attack civilian targets on the territory of Ukraine. Today, both at night and during the day, they attacked Kharkiv using drones. Odessa was also affected as a result of Russian terrorist strikes. There are wounded there and, unfortunately, one person killed. At the same time, Ukraine did not ignore the so-called Russian Federation either. Drones were sent there, attacking several regions, including the Moscow region.
Two of them, one heading toward the hydroelectric power station. Oh, one is right above us. Looks like they found their target today. That one too, heading the same way. Yeah, another one's coming in. This is a breakthrough for us. They decided to finish it off.
Not far from Moscow, drones attacked the Krasnozavodsk chemical plant. It produces explosives and other components for ammunition, including for artillery. Drones also attacked the military airfield in the Lipetsk region. Information about the results of the strike needs to be clarified, but it seems the Russians were celebrating
Judgment night, judgment night, judgment night, judgment night.
But perhaps the greatest losses the Russians suffered were not even from the strikes themselves, but simply from Ukrainian drones flying near Russian airports. And that's what we are going to talk about now. But first, the most important thing:
we must be destroyed.
To destroy Russian occupiers, as well as any other filth that tries to invade our land, we need your help. To shoot down Russian Orlans with our super weapons, we need your help. To destroy Shaheeds, we need your help. So go ahead and send at least 2 hryvnias right now to the current Fundraiser fund. And to make sure you don't miss new episodes, be sure to subscribe to my channel. As a result of attacks by Ukrainian drones, almost all air traffic in the European part of the so-called Russian Federation was suspended for 2 days.
Just awful. Absolutely insane.
This has undoubtedly started to hit the Russian economy as hard as any sanctions. At the same time, the situation for Russians became even more complicated when mobile internet started being shut off in the regions, which also affected other additional services. As a result, many Russians couldn't just fly, but couldn't even travel or buy anything.
These important reminders are clearly displayed on all of the various terminals. The cash registers aren't working either.
The collapse of Russian aviation became so serious that Vladimir Putin urgently dismissed the Minister of Transport this morning. The Russians themselves estimate the losses they've suffered in just 2 days at around 20 billion rubles, which is 10 billion hryvnias, or a little over $200 million.
Today, drones are grounding 147 planes, excuse my language, on their asses. Wait, was that even possible? Unfortunately, dear citizens, yes.
The more the war returns to where it started, that is to so-called Russia, the harder the blows to the Russian economy. And Solovyov can't understand why this is happening.
The airspace is being closed. No one can fly out or arrive anywhere. The question is why?
That's just how it is.
Maybe it's because the Russians started the war against Ukraine? Maybe it's because as long as this war continues, they should forget about air travel, forget about comfort, and get acquainted with war? Maybe it's because they are all responsible for this war?
This war is not free, and directly or indirectly, each of us, citizens of Russia, is paying for this war.
Besides the fact that such flights by Ukrainian drones deal a painful blow to the Russian economy, even if they don't hit their targets, since they target military facilities, there is also another important aspect, and that is logistics. For such a vast pseudo-country as the so-called Russian Federation, logistics is of critical importance. And the worse the logistics become, the faster this pseudo-state will fall apart. The Russians themselves are well aware of this, and that's exactly why their propagandists are losing their minds, because they understand the threat that such drone tactics pose. And Solovyov is demanding that they do at least something to open up the skies over Russia.
But if a person says, God forbid something happens, so I'd rather just shut everything down, I see. And what happens to the citizens, doesn't that concern anyone?
Great idea. I hope they listen to Solovyov, because in that case, Russians will start killing even more Russians. Because if both drones and civilian aircraft are flying at the same time, Russian air defense will start shooting down civilian aircraft as well, just like the Kadyrovits have already done.
Our air defense will respond quickly to any aerial threat.
At the same time, the Russians can't respond symmetrically to us because our civilian aviation hasn't been operating since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. But this is a game that two can play.
Let's put it this way. Inconveniences are growing, and more Russian citizens will feel the special military operation personally.
Russians will continue to feel more and more of the positives from the so-called special military operation. When drones reach them, that's a positive. When aviation doesn't work, that's a positive. Just as Lavrov said,
The special military operation has long had a very significant and undeniably positive impact on our domestic life, affecting various aspects and bringing about noticeable changes.
can the Russians somehow effectively counter this Ukrainian tactic? The answer is no, they are not capable of it because Ukraine is starting to produce more and more drones because there aren't enough air defense systems and because Ukrainian drones are flying too far into their territory. Therefore, as long as the war continues, such attacks will also continue.
And this can only be ended by ending the conflict. There is no way to put a stop to these strikes while the conflict is ongoing. Such a way does not exist.
The Russians do not want to stop or even pause the war, and so they will have to pay a very high price for it, much higher than they can imagine. I also need to talk to you about another new Russian threat. This is the Herbera drone. Previously, the Herbera was used exclusively as a Shahed decoy and was launched together with Shaheds to overload our air defense. But the Russians are not standing still. The occupiers have started using the Herbera as a strike drone as well. Recently, in the Donetsk region, one of these hit a residential building. But unfortunately, that's not all, because the enemy has also started using the same Herbera for aerial reconnaissance and as a relay for Shaheds. And that's not adding short, it has now become a multifunctional platform for them, and it poses a serious threat to the civilian population. But there is also some good news. There is a solution for intercepting Herberas, and it's quite inexpensive because our soldiers are actively shooting them down using FPV kamikaze drones and anti-air FPV interceptors, which you have donated for. As of now, dozens of Herberas have already been shot down, and there will be more. We are planning to significantly strengthen Ukraine's drone-based air defense in the near future. We are actively working on innovations, but to implement them, we definitely need your 2 hryvnias. And by the way, there is some great news. At your request, you can now set up a daily subscription for as little as 10 hryvnias on Monobaza. Give it a try. I'm leaving a link to the instructions in the description of this video. Well, for now, thanks to you, thanks to the fact that you constantly, daily and regularly donate, our military has received another 315 new FPVs. Glory to the heroes. I've said this many times before, but it's worth repeating. Yes, we are up against a very serious enemy. Yes, they are very strong and very large, but at the same time they are colossus with feet of clay. And if we carry out military reform, strengthen our defense capabilities and continue to support Ukraine's security and defense forces, we will see it fall.